What's happening, family? Dr. Joe here. Hope each of you are well and blessed. If you are between the age of 30 to 50, that if you are between those ages, I want you to understand, first of all, before I say this, understand that I am inclusive of that 20-year gap. If you are a person who's watching this and you are between that gap, you are a part of America, which ultimately is the world when you look at statistics, of the unhealthiest generation. I'm going to tell you the reason why. The reason being is it was our generation was the first generation that was raised on this concept of processed foods because the social dynamics of America had shifted in a magnificent and mighty way during that time. You see, our parents grew up eating foods from the gardens, many of which that they grew. If you've got a mother and a father from Alabama, from Georgia, Tennessee, most of them grew their crops, or they got their crops, fruits and vegetables, from people who grew them. If it was watermelons, greens, etc. Even those of you who had parents who grew up in New York and Chicago and places that did not have a lot of land per se, more so urban centers and not rural centers. Even yet and then in those days, they were at home. They were cooking home cooked meals. Men were the providers. Women were the caretakers of the home. It was more of a traditional type of integration between the man, the woman, and the house. But when our generation came, it was a major shift. We saw divorces on the rise. We saw the lessening of full homes. So more single parented homes began to increase. We saw women get into the workplace to where you have this dynamic of the valuation of convenience. So in our generation, the whole concept of convenience and the speed of preparing food changed the dynamics of how we did business from the vantage point of our food and consumption. Because what happened is mom is not at home cooking food. Grandmom is not cooking food as it was in those in the generation before. And I'm not politicizing this. I'm just telling you basically the manifestation of what happened. So then what happened was the food industry was able to see an opportunity because people were no longer spending the time and the resources to prepare food and to engage within this nutritional type of relationship that people had with food in America in the same way. That's when you start to see TV dinners. That's when you start to see chicken pot pies in the freezers. That's when you start to see hot pockets. That's when you start to see these things that were easy to pop in the oven, do this. It was about convenience because everything about how we lived our lives was different. But the convenience, the negative repercussions was the manifestation and the consumption of processed foods. We had never seen the level of processed foods then. So everything was about ease. Everything was about quickness. Everything was about, hey, I'm not at home. I can't get these types of foods. I don't want to pay a lot of money for these foods. I can't do this. So I need quick things that I can put in the microwave, that I can zap in this particular machine. I need something that's in a bag. I need something that's in plastic. And that whole generational desire for convenience is what caused the food industry to shift from farm to table, which is how it's always been. But now farm to table is something that is marketed to you like it's something special. But when you look back on it, that's how our parents and grandparents ate. It's nothing new about farm to table. Farm to table is a thing when you have a whole generation of people who ate and eat out of boxes and plastic. Your grandfathers didn't eat Lucky Charms. Our parents didn't eat Hot Pockets. Our parents weren't eating Sun Chips. Our parents weren't eating things like that. That wasn't even a part of what we ate, but it was our generation was the first generation that was raised on that. What am I saying this for? I'm saying this because those of us who are within those ages, many of us are now paying for the sins of our youth. Our health has been compromised. We are the sickest generation. We're the unhealthiest generation. We're seeing it's almost a point that everybody's a diabetic. 100 million people are diabetic or pre-diabetic. That's directly connected to diet. We have an extraordinary high amount of cardiovascular disease, strokes, a high amount of young people having cardiac arrest. We're seeing all of these levels of massive amounts of obesity. More people committed suicide last year than any other year ever. And if you don't think the overall sense of poor health that leads to depression, that leads to not feeling good about myself, that leads to all of these things, if you don't think that that is a part of that conversation, not to say that it's the only part, but you are majorly mistaken. So when you really think about what I'm saying, and when you really think about, hey, if I'm between that age of 30 to 50, we're the first generation that popping something in a microwave, having a full meal ready in 5 minutes, that was never a part of our parents or our grandparents' way of thinking. They never thought of that. They didn't do that. Going to the garden, getting collard greens, cooking for days. They never had chips and bologna and deli meats. That wasn't a part of our parents' that was a part of our generation. So when we're looking out at all these foods that's killing us, right? Literally, we don't really see them as killing us because it's all we've ever known. That's all we've ever known. So this subject matter of understanding that processed foods were never designed for human consumption without the inevitable manifestation of disease. Meaning what? If you eat processed foods, you're going to be sick, you're going to be overweight, you're going to become insulin resistant, you're going to ultimately become a diabetic, you're probably going to have kidney issues, glaucoma issues, circulatory issues, autoimmune issues, and that is the present manifestation of people between 30 and 50. We are the sickest generation there is because we were raised on poison. And that's not a fault of our parents because they didn't understand that. But let me tell you something. When you know better, you do better. People who come in through the 4-day turn up learn about all this stuff. Their lives are changed. They learn the correct way of having a proper and healthy relationship with food. And I just wanted to drop this particular message. I hope this helps you all. This ain't a 60-second reel, right? Some things you just can't rush, but it's the truth. So if you are within that generation, let us open our minds. Even if you're not in the 4-day turn up, do your best to eat more like our ancestors did. If we eat more like our ancestors did, it's going to be exponentially better than what we're doing right now. Until next time, be well, be blessed, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.